Easy entrepreneur content idea for social media this week. I want you to tell a story about your entrepreneurial experience. Now, this is not a journey story. This is not I started here and I got here, and this is not talking about you in a professional capacity. This is showing us an experience that you've had as an entrepreneur, because people watch us. They watch us building our businesses, thriving in our space, doing really cool things, and they want to know what it's really like to be an entrepreneur. Now, we know most of this is behind the scenes, isolated behind our computer, not really being social, but sometimes we get out and we get to go do things and we get to have really cool experiences. As an author, one of the stories I love to tell is when I went to a book signing, I had somebody travel across the country to meet me, saw me across the room, screamed at the top of her lungs, and came running across a ballroom, and we didn't know who she was coming to, but it was definitely in our area. Then as she got closer, it was definitely down our aisle. And then when she got even closer, it was me or one of the ladies next to me, and it ended up being me. She crashed into me. She was so excited. She hyperventilated and almost fainted. We had to sit her down behind the table and let another author take care of her because I had a line of people waiting to meet me. And so thankfully, my author friend was able to watch her and make sure she was okay and make sure my money box and all of those things were also okay under my table. And then she left without even telling me her name, and she didn't reach out to me on social media, but she was a super fan, and I, to this day, don't know who she is. That's a story that I get to tell. And I've also had really cool opportunities to go places, to have conversations, to do really cool speaking engagements. I've had really cool emails sent to me. I've had fan art sent to me of the things that I create, but also of me. I could have all of those stories as part of this collection of ongoing entrepreneurial stories. I want you to think of something cool that's happened to you. It doesn't have to be cool in the popular social sense. It can be cool to you. What matters to you? I want you to stop right now and think about your entrepreneurial journey. What is something that you really like leaning into? What made you feel good? What gave you a really good boost of serotonin? What made it possible for you to feel like I've made it, or I've done something really cool, or I'm really happy with what's going on. I'm happy with the engagement I'm having with people. Think about those things. Write those down. You can use this as an ongoing series. And now I want you to pick one of them. You're going to pick that story, and you are going to start the conversation by saying, you will never believe what happened to me as a whatever your job is. Or I am a blank, this happened to me. Or has this ever happened to you? Or something really cool happened to me. Or I didn't expect this to happen. Come up with a hook. Get your little hook, and then in 30 seconds, tell me this story. Keep it short and sweet. Bullet points only. You're not giving a lot of details. I'm giving you the bullet point of how a girl flew across the country, showed up at this book event, screamed across the ballroom, ran at me, and you can add in more or less details depending on how much time you have. She ran at me, collided with me, nearly hyperventilated. We had to sit her down while I managed the rest of my line who wanted to come get books signed and have conversations with me. And then she ran off before even telling me her name after we had a lovely conversation about how excited she was to meet me. Bullet point list. But if I were having more of a conversation, I would really build it out. So if I were doing something like that for a YouTube channel, which is going to be a longer piece of content, now I'm adding in more of those details. I'm going to talk about the way that the entire ballroom turned to look at her when we heard this scream, and how she came crashing through a crowd of people around all of the tables and all of the things going on, where she was careening almost out of control through the aisles to get toward our section, which was in the very back of the ballroom. She had started on the opposite end, and we were on the far side of it. So she had a long way to go, but she saw me from a distance and she came running in. You can see I'm adding in all those details, all of those layers. I can talk more or less. I can talk about what she looked like, what she was wearing, the way that she collided with me when she threw her arms around me and hugged me, the way that she nearly passed out, the way we had to catch her and get her setting down in the chair behind my desk, and how my friend was so kind to pay attention to her and to take care of her while I was managing everything else, because we had a long line of people waiting to get their books signed and all of these things. There's a lot of details I can add in. So now here comes the trick. You're going to have staple stories inside of your entrepreneurial journey. These are fantastic for you to use when you have interviews, when you were on stage, when you're just talking to your friends and family and you want to give them cool things that you have been doing inside of your entrepreneurial journey. You are then going to be able to pull out some of these stories. So having these staple stories, very helpful. You are then going to be able to tell them in different ways every time. So that bullet point list, I gave you the bullet point list. Maybe the next time I tell this story, I'm going to lean heavily into a different aspect of this. You are not going to believe how I had to set down a fan behind my table at a book signing, and I might reverse engineer it. So I might start off by saying, one of my author friends had to take care of one of my fans behind my table at a book signing. That's going to be a really great hook. Now I've started it in a different place and I have the ability to peel back the layers in a different way. I can then add more about how she was hyperventilating and how she was having her meltdown and how she was so excited to see me and the things that she brought and all of the stuff. We can talk about that. Then I can backtrack a little bit and say, yeah, she showed up on the opposite side of the ballroom. She saw me. She came running. All these things led to this event. I can give more and less details, so the story's different every single time. Having these staple stories are easy for you to then lean into, but also makes for really easy content and attractive content and interesting and engaging content. Because looking at an entrepreneur of any kind, people aren't going to really know the behind the scenes. Sure, they understand that we're running a business, but they don't understand the cool perks that we get, those extra little things that people come to events specifically to meet us, that people are going to send us fan art, that people are going to send us really cool emails, that we're going to be given the opportunity to speak at different conventions or different stages, that we are asked to do a podcast, that we're asked to do a live stream. You can lean into those stories. It doesn't have to be big like mine. I understand that not everybody's going to have people screaming and running at them at a convention just to meet them. But maybe you had the opportunity to be on a really cool podcast that you enjoyed. Talk about the behind the scenes of being asked to be on the podcast and then what happened behind the scenes of that podcast. You could even get really deep just on the details of setting up. You got asked to do a podcast. This is how you got ready for that podcast. So you did your meditations that morning and you got all ready and you looked over your notes and you were sure of what you wanted to do. And then you set up your microphone and your camera source and you could talk about all of these things. Whatever is interesting to you, that is slightly outside of your everyday, that feels like it might impress your mom or your sister or your best friend if you were telling some of these stories, lean into those. These are things that should be celebrated inside of our businesses. And this is really easy content for you to do that you can use over and over again. Pick your staple stories, figure out different ways of telling them, different places to start, different places to lean into or lean into more heavily or less heavily with this based on what you're talking about. Come up with a couple of different stories and then just keep reusing them again and again and again. Tell different aspects of it, tell different parts of it. And it feels new and exciting and like we're peeling back extra layers for people who have already heard it as well. Follow along for more ideas on how you can easily be creating content inside of your entrepreneurial journey to save you time and effort so that you can thrive and make this your most profitable year ever with the daily videos here on the channel. We'll see you there.